detail, could I remind you that you will have the opportunity to participate in 2 Slido polls that you can access using the links that are provided and will appear on the screen. Our speakers in the first panel will map out what digitalization means to the maritime industry from a user's perspective. In the second panel, our speakers will help us to plot a course for the future of digitalization and comment on its potential to reach across borders and unify industries and technologies and create seamless work practices. To set the scene from a policy perspective and to open this morning's proceedings, I am delighted to welcome Reka Rozwadowski from DG Mare, who's responsible there for maritime policy. You are very welcome indeed, Reka. Thank you for attending this morning, and I pass the baton over to you.
Thank you very much, Liam, and thank you very much also for the organizers to put this event in place on behalf of DG Mare. I'm very glad to address you today at this Irish national event that is focusing on port digitalization. Indeed, let me first highlight that the blue economy is a crucial economic sector in the EU, and alone in the Atlantic area, blue economy has generated 73.4 billion euros of gross value added and employed 1.29 million people alone in 2017. Now, this gross value added is generated mainly by coastal tourism, but also importantly to mention, followed by port activities, about 12 billion euros of gross value added. And in terms of employment, port activities are also offering significant employment opportunities in the Atlantic area. But to realize that potential, we have to embed the blue economy in our long-term direction. With the European Green Deal, actually we know where we are going. We need to try to change the model of the blue economy. We have to leave behind us the blue growth concept of the past and replace it with that of a sustainable blue economy. This is not greenwashing. What we actually want is to refocus our EU policies and support promoting circular, renewable, responsible and innovative economic activities. Many of the blue economy sectors, of course, are suffering because of the pandemic now. We need to make sure that every aspect of the recovery shifts the focus from exploitation to sustainability. And that is why we at the European Commission are preparing a forthcoming strategy for blue economy that we actually plan to adopt and publish on Monday next week. With this new approach to sustainable blue economy, we will make the blue economy as an integral part of the European Green Deal and also of Europe's green recovery. The new Atlantic Action Plan that we adopted last year in July is very timely in this respect, since it provides support and allows us to put the blue economy on the recovery path and on the path of transformation. As you know, one of the 4 key thematic pillars that Liam is also in charge of coordinating of this action plan is targeting Atlantic ports, which is also the central theme of the event today. It's worth mentioning that ports can play a major role in the sustainable development and for the transition to carbon-free economy, but to seize this opportunity, the role and potential of Atlantic ports need to be reconsidered, and the role of port operators as catalysts for blue businesses need to be strengthened. To that end, we have actually marked a concrete action under the new Atlantic Action Plan, targeting the accelerators for Atlantic ports to help scale up innovative businesses. And I was very glad to see yesterday that with the kickoff meeting of the so-called ASP-BAN project, this innovative action to create a blue accelerator scheme for the Atlantic ports has actually been put in motion already now. Ports play indeed a vital role in the European economy, being the entry point for over 75% of all EU trade. At the same time, like other transport sectors, ports are also facing major environmental, economic, and technological evolutions. The Commission's focus on greening and digitalization are therefore highly relevant for this sector. We expect the ports to be at the forefront of digital transformation and automation through multimodal hubs that drive economic growth. Becoming smart and connected are crucial factors for ports, as for the entire transport and logistics sector, but also in the broader blue economy context. Now, greening and digitalization will strengthen our ports' resilience, not least in the aftermath of the coronavirus crisis that we are experiencing today, but also in a context of increasing global competition, particularly from China. Now, with this in mind, I would like to wish you a fruitful event and inspiring discussions. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you very much indeed, Rika, for setting out the Commission's views and for providing a policy context within which the discussions this morning can take place. I couldn't agree more with the comment that you made in relation to the integration of the Atlantic strategy with other important programs such as ASPAN, and there is great scope there. I was enthused, as you were, with the kickoff meeting of ASPAN yesterday. Our next speaker is Isabel Reichbust. Isabel is Secretary General in the European Seaports Organization, ESPO, and has been since 2013. Before taking up this function, Isabel was Director of the European Federation of Inland Ports and was a Senior Advisor for ESPO for a number of years. Isabel is a law graduate, having studied at Louvain University. Before becoming Secretary General in ESPO, she held a number of positions in European public affairs and at the European Commission and DG Agriculture. She's also worked at an EU public affairs consultancy and as a political advisor to a member of the European Parliament. Isabel has an abiding interest and involvement in maritime transport for much of her career, and I can think of few people as qualified as Isabel to speak on how European ports are and will be affected by digitalization. It's a great pleasure to welcome you this morning, Isabel, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Liam, and good morning, everyone. It's for me a pleasure and an honor to participate in this workshop, which brings together the Atlantic Sea Basin, and we look at this important issue of digitalization. Digitalization, in fact, has, as we know, many faces, many shades, and for many, and I think, you said it also in the introduction, Liam, it looks like something extremely at a distance, sophisticated or whatever, but one tends to forget that digitalization is everywhere for everyone, and it's all around, and certainly also for European ports. Digitalization will really help European ports to deliver on their ambitions. And I selected like 5 how would I say, assets or 5 added values of digitalization. We know that ports, the core tasks of European ports is to be this node in the supply chain, but we see, and I think this workshop shows that very clearly, is that the tasks of European ports are becoming wider, so not at least in all the blue economy sectors, covering as well offshore, tourism, and so on. So there is a lot happening around and in ports, a lot more than before. So if you are with an enhanced complexity of a lot more stakeholders together, it's very important to get an order in this complexity, to exchange data, to have more transparency, to have more knowledge, more interaction between all the players. So therefore, the port can be the facilitator, and can also, digitalization will help a lot in this role. Then also, if we speak about additional and new roles to come, it's also like that ports will need more resources, in financial resources, but also resources in space. And this means the ports are heavy infrastructures and heavy assets. So all extras cost a lot of money. So it's very important to have the most efficient use of the existing resources, the existing space. So there also digitalization will allow to use infrastructure, to optimize that use and to see that the different activities in the port can better be combined. So digitalization can help in the rationalization of the existing and so keep also new infrastructure, see that where the needs are. And then the third thing is, I think, very topical, since we are going with the COVID pandemic through one of the most disruptive periods in mankind. Also here, digitalization is and has been helping us. Of course, we now have these digital seminars and so on, and this has also been very helpful in the functioning of the ports. But what is very important to see is that through the COVID crisis, we have really seen a leap forward in contactless transport, contactless ticketing, and so on. So all things that will be very important also when we want to recover and reboost again passenger transport, maritime passenger transport, cruise, ferry transport. So this will be also the health added value to limit the interactions or unneeded interactions is also a very good asset of digitalization. Then the fourth and maybe the most known impact of digitalization or asset is the link to the Green Deal, achieving net zero emissions. There, of course, the main issue for if we look at maritime is to move to cleaner fuels and cleaner technologies. But linked to that, and additionally, as a complementary gain, efficiency can play a role. If we know more exactly when a vessel is arriving in the port, more exact planning in advance, port operations can be better planned and we can do more with the existing infrastructure. Lose less time, use the infrastructure better, and also avoid that the vessel is waiting and emitting in front of the port. So that is important. And what is also important is everything what is linked to digitalization is also linked to transparency, because we will increase our knowledge. We will also be a lot more transparent. And that is my fifth added value. It's this transparency, because we all know 90% of European ports are also urban ports and also are very much located in dense urban areas or built-up areas. And so people nowadays, they want to know what is happening in the port. They want to know what is coming out as negative externalities from the port, but also the good things in the port. And so with digitalization, we will be able to monitor, to also share data. And so this will also help in developing this license to grow and license to operate. So these are a bit what I see as 5 added values. There are even more probably, but there are, just to finalize on this, there are 3 important conditions. And first is that we cooperate, so that all the actors cooperate and are willing to share data. Then the second thing I think is important, that we keep on seeing that digitalization is a tool. It's not a business in itself for ports. So it's something to help to give a better service to the customers, to optimize the use of infrastructure, the management of infrastructure, but it's not a business in itself. And the third and maybe the most important point is cybersecurity. Because we now in the last year, we have been more and more dependent of digital solutions and so on. It's getting very important in our lives, in our work. We have a security framework, the ISPS, for the physical security in and around ports. So, but the digital security is probably nowadays the most important thing to look at. It's one of the biggest possible. So I think for it's important to have on the agenda. So to conclude, I think digitalization is not something for only the big ports, and this is shown and will be shown, I think, in all the examples being discussed today. It can help the biggest European ports to decongest or to be the neutral data manager between all the shipping lines and so on. But it can also help the very small port to remain open, for instance, on a 24/7 basis by just having an automated access gate to the terminal, or by having here or there a €50 sensor to help discovering some irregularity in the equipment. So I think it has a very wide spectrum, and there is something for everyone, for all the ports. But I think this will be also revealed this morning. So I would like to thank you once again for inviting me for this workshop, and I hope you have a very interesting morning.
Thank you very much indeed, Isabel, and what a wonderful and broad landscape you have set out there in terms of the 5 points of added value, and then the 3 additional issues of cooperation, digitalization as a tool, not an end in itself, but as a tool for making improvements in our industry, and then the critical issue of cybersecurity. And I think that all of those themes are going to feed into the discussions that follow. So thank you very much indeed for that wonderful contribution. It is now my pleasure to introduce my colleague, Dr. Adele O'Connor, who is Business Development Manager with the Irish Maritime Development Office. Adele's research was in the area of computer science. She was an early proponent of digitalization in the Irish maritime industry and was a key figure in the establishment of the International Fast and Secure Trade Lanes Project, IFSTL, for which she is project manager. That project is funded from Motorways of the Sea funding. Adele is also a member of the Atlantic Strategy Ports Pillar Coordination Team and will moderate our 2 panel discussions. Good morning, Adele, and I hand over to you now to take us through the first panel discussion and up to the coffee break at 11 o'clock.
Great, thank you, Liam, and delighted to be here this morning to moderate this session. And it's great to see so many participants online this morning, and it just, I suppose, really reflects how important this particular area is and how much attention it's getting at the moment. And there's great potential for digitalization to make port operations and logistics more efficient. The efficiency of the sector and its ability to conduct its operations in a smart and sustainable manner is of key importance for the competitiveness and future growth of the Atlantic Sea Basin. So we are delighted to have an excellent panel here this morning to discuss that. But before I mention that, I just wanted to remind you or let you know that we also have some Slido questions for you to answer. So as we kick off the panel, I'd invite you all, and hopefully it'll come up on the screen there. I'd invite you all to join Slido, and there are 2 questions that we'd love to hear from the audience on, and hopefully the details will come up there now. But the first question will be asking you, what do you see as the principal obstacles to digitalization in ports? So is it finance or cost benefit issues, skills or ICT knowledge, clarity and policy or regulations in place, or availability of technology? So when you get to, or when you go on to Slido and you answer that question, we will discuss that particular question at the end of the first session. And on the second question, which we'll discuss at the end of the second session, will be what port activities are most suitable to digitalization. So is it ship movement, cargo handling, reporting requirements, or multimodal connections in particular on rail and road. So we'd love to hear from our audience on that, and we'd love to bring that into the discussion. So we'd be delighted if you would join at slido.com. There's a hashtag there, Ports Pillar 2021, or you can also use the icon on the top left there to scan with your phones. But I think, you know, possibly a very straightforward way is to go onto slido.com, hashtag Ports Pillar 2021, and we'd be delighted to hear from you there. So just to move on, I suppose, to what our first session is really going to discuss this morning. We have two panel discussions in the workshop today, and the first session is really to get the user's perspective. So we want to understand how ports and shipping operators, how are they adopting digitalisation now, and what kind of challenges are they facing? So we have three speakers this morning. Captain Paul O'Regan, the Chief Operations Officer and Harbour Master at the Port of Cork in Ireland. Mr. Claudio Pinto, the National Coordinator of the Dual Single Window Project in Portugal from the Port of Sines, and Mr. Carlos Botano Lagaron, the Head of Sustainability in the Port of Vigo. And we're delighted to hear from all of you this morning, and a really thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be with us. So I'd like to welcome Captain Paul O'Regan as our first speaker. So the way the session will run is I've asked each of the speakers to give us an overview. So I'll invite them to give their overviews first, and then for the last half an hour of the session, we will move into a panel discussion where we'll explore some of the issues that come up in the presentation and some questions at the end of the session, to the end of the session. And following that, we'll invite you then to take a coffee break before we move in. And I think we've had some really interesting points so far from Reka and Isabel. You know, lots of key issues coming up there, sustainability, decongestion, transparency, emissions, cybersecurity. So it'd be really interesting now just to hear from the ports in terms of what the issues and how they're progressing through digitalisation. So Paul, Captain Paul O'Regan, Chief Operational Officer, Port of Cork, who are in the middle of a big expansion project on the container terminal. So Paul, I know you're exceptionally busy, so delighted that you can be here with us this morning. So over to you.
Thank you, Idel, and hello to the other panelists as well and everybody online. It's great to see Port of Vigo, Port of Sines and Brittany Ferries, who are a great customer of the Port of Cork, here as the other panelists as well. And it's interesting as we talk about digitization, because from a physical point of view, you know, we've worked with some people in the Port of Sines and Vigo as well in the past on different projects such as UNCAD Train for Trade and other areas. So it's interesting now that we talk about digitization and how the ports might cooperate and help each other through a greater level of digitization and integration. Sines, I'd like to congratulate you on your outstanding results and your growth in containerization this year. I think second in Europe, so fantastic to see that, certainly in a COVID year. I did have some slides that I gave to Fiona, and if we could put up those slides now, it would be great.
Great. Fiona, can you share Paul's slides, please? Here we go.
Thank you, Fiona. So the Port of Cork, we're a Tier 1 port, and we're located in the south of Ireland. We're the second busiest port in Ireland. We're multimodal. We're a port authority, but also a terminal operator. So when we speak about digitization and technology, I guess we've been doing this for years. Long before digitization became a catchphrase, I think we would have probably always have embraced new technology as we moved forward. in the different areas in the port from a point of view of terminal operations and also ship operations. And it's very interesting to see on the Slido immediately, Idel, that after you launch the first question, that it's both cargo operations and ship movements that people are already seeing the greatest benefits of digitization in. And of course, without ships and without ship movements and efficient cargo operations, ports wouldn't really be great ports. And I'd like to make a comment on what Isabel said about the advantages of digitization, perhaps in managing vessels and vessel arrivals, but also the cooperation in sharing non-commercial information between ports to help ports manage our operations better, reduce our environmental impact, and give a better customer service. And I think we have really seen during the COVID pandemic the disruption to schedules, particularly the low schedules, where certainly the smaller feeder ports, as a result of the larger hub ports, seeing irregular shipping movements and large volumes coming at them, and they're trying to cope. The smaller ports certainly have a huge issue then with trying to manage our throughput and manage our service to the customer as well. So greater knowledge sharing and digitization in that area would really help to be able to iron out the planning and how we serve our customers. So if you can just jump on to the next slide, please, Fiona. I'll give an overview of the port and where we are with this. We're, as we say, we're a port authority and a terminal operator. We are coming to the final stage of a new container terminal build of 100 million euros. And that's the first stage of probably the next 10 to 15 years of developments within the port, as the port moves from being a city center port or city-centered port out to more of a deeper water river port. And it's going to be a very interesting and challenging time. And I think digitization is actually one of our key pillars of advancement in our own master plan and also in our corporate plan that needs to be approved by our shareholder, which is the Department of Transport. So we do place digitization very high on this list. So in 2019, we took the bull by the horns and we engaged another port, actually, a port that is very well advanced in digitization and how they manage their issues, to come and do a root and branch review of our digitization maturity and where are we along the roadmap to being to developing and putting things in place. And we found that we had an overall score of 1.6 out of 5, which surprised us because we thought we were doing a little bit better. And in fact, we were doing quite well in different areas that we could see growth in, such as the Lolo trade, the cruise industry, but we weren't doing so well with the integration across other areas then and how we managed it. So we now have an ambition by 2023 to move that score up close to 4, which is a huge ask. And I think it's something that is achievable, but it's achievable only by greater cooperation and understanding. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. So our roadmap now from 2019 onwards, right, to move to 4 is in-port connectivity. And we are looking, of course, in order to support any of the initiatives we have, we need good connectivity, we need good bandwidth, we need to be able to run our systems. So therefore, we will start looking at our own networks, whether we roll out a 5G network ourselves or not, or we piggyback on somebody else. And again, for cybersecurity and protection, we really are concentrating on these areas. Smart port systems, and we are working with a number of companies over the last number of years to improve and implement new smart port systems. Before we can go out to the wider external community, I think we need to have our own systems good first. And this is a very important area for us. I think one thing that I would mention on this is I am a member of the International Harbour Masters Group and also a wider global stevedoring group. And what we see globally is that there are plenty of solutions to either full port solutions for digitization, part port solutions, terminal solutions. Somewhere along the way, they all integrate, they all cross over each other. But there are good examples and there are not so good examples. So I think there is a difficulty here, and perhaps we'll put it out to the panel afterwards, with understanding what is a good product for your port and what is not a good product for the port. There are more and more product providers offering a wide range of digitization products for ports and telling every port that they can work wonders for what we can do. But it's obviously a difficult area to get into, and one of the greatest benefits that we have found is our overall port network, either within ESPO or within our wider port network of operators, where we can see projects that have been brought ahead in other ports and see the ones that work and the ones that don't work. We are a small port in the context of the overall European port network and global port network, yet we have contacts right through the United States, Asia and Europe. We can't afford to have large-scale projects that we would spend a lot of money on if they don't work. So we have to be right first time in a lot of the projects that we put in and a lot of the projects that we bring ahead. Can you jump on, please, Fiona? Thank you. So where are our current projects? Most importantly, I think, on top of the list is our people, and being able to support any sort of digitization or technology advancements or improvements. We have to have people who understand what they're doing. We have to have people who can evaluate what is a good proposition and evaluate what is perhaps not so good. Not so good cost.
1 minute to conclude.
Thank you. And really, this is a root and branch for us now at this stage. We didn't have our own IT department before. We're starting to build a much broader, robust IT support internally to help us move ahead. Automated processes. We were very lucky that we were the only port in Ireland that had a vehicle booking system at the start of COVID, which meant that none of the drivers had to actually interact or transfer paperwork on our terminals. That worked very well. We have OCR in order to manage information and detect damage in all of the terminals. Port Management Information System is an internal system to us, but now we have more and more players being part of it. Mobility management plans, and we are now looking at all our and applying machine learning to those to actually take out any of the issues that we see coming in those messages. The digital twin, we are building a digital twin report and hopefully move that forward to manage assets into the future, to manage safety, to manage security. Again, it's very hard to identify some of the cost benefit analysis in these. Sometimes you have to take a leap of faith. It's not always readily identifiable where you're going to get savings, you're going to get better use of your resources, or you're going to get income streams. But I do think that they become clear as we move on. And the last slide, please. And is there a roadmap? In our particular case, there's not a single roadmap, there's not a single solution. I think there's a wide range of solutions depending on what the port is doing, how the port wants to connect with other ports and the customers. But certainly there is a place for everything on this slide within digitization and being a smart port into the future. So that, I think, is the last slide, Fiona.
That's great. Thank you, Paul. And I mean, lots of really important points there. Really interested to discuss in the panel, you know, how you're engaging with another port and to look at your digital maturity. And also the concept as well that there's lots of products out there, and how, you know, a port, you know, tries to understand what product is best for them and what's worth their investment. So I think lots of areas to discuss in the panel there. So thank you, Paul, for that. Moving on, so we had Mr. Christopher Kerwin from Britain Ferries as our second speaker. Now, Christopher is just having a little bit of technical difficulty at the moment joining us. So we'll move on to Mr. Claudio Pinto, and hopefully Christopher can join us at the end of the session. So Mr. Claudio Pinto, who is the National Coordinator of the Dual project, which is the Portuguese single window project from Port of Sinhas. And Claudio has had a significant role in the development of Portugal's single window environment. And Claudio, I saw recently that Port of Sinhas has also been successful in a new EU Green Deal project as well, on smart green ports. So lots of interesting things happening in the Port of Sinhas. So look, really looking forward to hearing from you, and over to you, Claudio.
Okay. I will share my screen with you. Are you listening? Well?
Yes, that's great, Claudio, and we can see
Okay,
your
thank
slides. So that's brilliant. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and I would like to thank you the opportunity to talk about and to share with you our main project related with the digital transformation and innovation process in Portuguese ports. What is the logistical single window? The JUL is a project promoted by all Portuguese ports under the umbrella of the Portugal Port Association. This project can be comprehended as a new step given by the Portuguese ports towards digital transformation, thus fulfilling all the work that has been done over the last 2 decades. It aims at simplifying and harmonizing procedures along the whole logistic chain while integrating the land means of transport and the dry ports. Thinking a bit more ahead, our goal is to build a search generation platform from a technological point of view, which, based on pillars such as mobility, cloud, and big data, allows for the development of concepts like the smart ports, the extended gateways, the synchro-modal networks, and physical internet concepts. Of course, some of them will be delivered within the scope of the project, while others, like synchro-modality and the physical internet, will be developed afterwards. This is not only a technological project to develop digital solutions. It's more than that. We aim at defining the basis and the tools assuring a sustainable evolution and operation of the platform. In this manner, we have 5 main deliverables in the project. Starting from the left side, the national reference model defining all the business process supported by the platform, the interoperability framework defining the interfaces and the set of electronic messages allowing to establish the collaboration among the parties. We have the digital tools that I will detail ahead in this presentation, which consist on the set of applications used by the parties. The legislation package, which establishes the legal framework for the use and management of the platform, and the governance framework defining how the port authorities, as owners of the platform, will perform its governance. This is some figures that was taken from 1 year of usage of the application. This is the current situation. We have already operating in the platform 10 ports in Portugal. We are connecting around 70 dry ports, railway or multimodal platforms in the Iberian Peninsula. We manage more than 6,500 ship calls and 6,000 trains. We have at this moment more than 3,000 users using the service that we offer in the platform. We expect to double these numbers until the end of the year when we finish the rollout phase that we are performing at this moment. And we have issued around 20,000 invoices in the platform. I would like to underline this topic, the invoices topic, because I think we have a single situation in the European context, because we have performed with authorities what you call the single invoice in the port, which means that when a ship comes to a Portuguese port and they exit the port, at average in 2 days we issue an invoice comprising all the services provided by 5 authorities. The service provided by the Port Authority, the Customs, the Health, and the Maritime Authority. So this is the figures of the current situation of the project. Talking about the digital tools that we are developing, this is a portfolio of application provided by the platform. Each one was developed to support a specific business domain. This way of architecting the platform gives us agility and flexibility to respond to the user's demands in the future. In addition, it allows the community of users to combine their own solutions with the ones offered by us. For instance, we have, of course, a set of solutions, a set of application to deal with the information flows and the requirements needed for manage a ship call. We have solutions to deal with the issues related with the control access to the facilities. We have solutions to share information with the railway operators or with the train operators. We have solutions to deal with the risks that a ship represents to the port, related with safety. We have solutions to collaborate with the authorities and with the terminal operators related with the inspection that are needed to be done to the cargo. And of course, we have solutions to deal with the invoicing, the payments of the service that are provided. Just to give you some examples, the main application that we have in this new platform is the terminal operating system, where we offer all the services needed to plan and to report the cargo handling in each one of the nodes of the network. The project promoters are all the port authorities under the umbrella of Portugal Port Associations. We have with us all the authorities, the Customs, the National Maritime Authority, the Border Control, the Health, the Vet and Phyto authorities. And I would like to underline the collaboration that we have with the Maritime Administration. They are together with us. They are developing the application, the digital tools for the Maritime Administration. They will receive from the application that we have in each port community the reporting formalities, for instance, and they will share this information with Amstel, for instance. This allows us to be compliant with the new regulation, the new European regulation, the European Maritime Single Window regulation. And it's done for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudio. I'm really amazed at how successful the project has been, and it's really a credit to you and the rest of the team, and the team in Portugal to be able to bring such a project to fruition, and to such success. And I'd be interested to discuss maybe during the panel session in terms of how to bring all those stakeholders together, because I think there's a lot that we can learn in some of the other Atlantic member states, in what you've done in Portugal and the model that you've used. So thank you for that overview. Just a reminder before we move on to the next speaker about Slido. So if you've just joined us late, I just want to let you know that we have slido.com, #PortsPillar2021. We've 2 questions. What you see as the principal obstacles to digitalisation in ports, and what port activities are most suitable to digitalisation. So we'd really love to hear from our audience, and we'll be discussing the first question at the end of this particular panel and the second question at the end of the second panel. So really looking forward to hearing from our audience on those questions. Now, moving on to our next speaker in this panel. So we have Mr. Carlos Botana Lagaron, the head of sustainability in the Port of Vigo. So Carlos, we are really looking forward to hearing from you this morning on what's happening in the Port of Vigo on digitalisation.
Thank you, Del. Thank you to invite the Port of Vigo to participate. I go to share my presentation. It is possible.
Yeah. So
have a little problem.
if you're having difficulty, Carlos, we can share from our end. So we'll give you a second there just to see if you can share.
Sorry. Sorry.
No problem.
No.
No problem. Fiona, can
No,
you
now I have.
Oh, you have it. Yes. You have it. Great.
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Carlos.
Thank you.
We can see that now. So if you want to go into presentation mode. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you. In this slide, this is possible to see the Port of Vigo. The Port of Vigo is very close, very near of the city, and very close. It's in the Bay of Vigo. It's a very particular bay because have 5 protecting areas. For the reason, the efficiency and the environment issues and the use of the space is very demanding for all the people, for the citizens, and for the reason it is necessary the transparency. It is necessary to have a very efficient management system in the port. The ports are a hub where all maritime economy activities converge. There are a lot of activities in the Port of Vigo. It's the first fishing port. There are naval industry, 15 shipyards. There are general cargo, cruiser, nautical, and the port is the hub and the connecting with all these activity. We have in the beginning of the Blue Growth strategy 4 goals to become green, innovative, connecting, and inclusive. Now we have only 3: green, digitalization, and inclusive. The first question is, what is the meaning of the concept 4.0, the digitalization? Isabel spoke in the presentation, the digitalization is a tool. What is the concept 4.0? Robotic, big data, augmented reality, 3D, artificial intelligence, neuronal system. It is true, but in my point of view, the most important is to measure knowing our reality. We have millions of data available, and it's impossible to analyze intuitively. What is the problem? We have data about the consumption of energy, the consumption of grain, about the environment, about the logistic issue, and it is very difficult to make the best decision in very fast. For this reason, we need a support system to make the best decision. In our strategy, we have different examples of projects with the concept 4.0, the digitalization. One is the project ports self-sufficient with the use of the renewable energy. Another is the port forward, is in the Horizon 2020, is the design of the port of the future. Another is Marinet, the Blue Carriers, is an Interreg project, is the use of the digitalization in the training activities, because it is necessary to go together. Another is the smart system, and there are other, the fish market 4.0, the naval 4.0, or the ecologistic is a SUDOE project with Portugal and Galicia to improve and develop the smart system in the logistic activities. I want to put 2 examples or 3 examples. The first example is in Horizon 2020, the port forward. There are several ports, Vigo, Baleares, Livorno, and other, and there are technological companies in these projects. In our case study is the University of Brunel, Leitat, and the Institute of Fraunhofer. In the Port Vigo use case, is about our container terminal. The idea is to design the green yard scheduler. Is a decision support system for more efficient and sustainable container terminal operation. The goal: increase the container terminal productivity, reduce the carbon footprint on the terminal, integrate with the terminal operating system, harmonize container yard operation. The first thing is identify the problem. We have the carbon footprint for all the ports, escape 1, 2, and 3, with all the terminals and all the operators. And in the case of the container terminal, you can see the carbon footprint, the different steps of the container terminal. The most important in the container terminal is the berthing operation, around the 47%. The second is the movement of vehicles, 30%, and then the use of the trash turner and ridge stacker in the terminal, around the 10%. For the reason we identified, and with the use of the mathematical system to connect the terminal with this mathematical system, it is possible to solve and to improve the efficiency in our terminal. The first problem is to determine the sequence of the container movements in the terminal, and the reduction, it is possible to obtain 4–6%. The second is the yard crane scheduling problem, determine the allocation and schedule of the yard cranes, and the reduction is around the 38%. And last, the container position problem, determine the slot allocation of container, and the reduction is near the 30%. This is the possibility to have the IT tools permit to have the the decision in the localization of the container, in the decision in the movement, reduce the emission, reduce the costs because reduce the consumption of energy. You are more efficient in the use of the space. I think this is a good example. Another good example is the Portos project, self-sufficient port with renewable energy. Is Atlantic project with different ports and countries, and the idea is developing and promoting the implementation of renewable energy, especially marine renewable energy in the Atlantic area. The impact reduce the greenhouse gases emission and pollution, improving the competitiveness of the Atlantic area and the emerging marine renewable energy market through the development and transfer of knowledge and decision support tools. The same, it is necessary tool for the port to make the best decision, what is the best renewable energy we need in my port with my demand. And then the last is the Blue Port Observatory to bring visibility to the benefits of the integration of the renewable energies in ports. Another example, but it's total different, is the ocean hull of the fish market 4.0. In this project, the exercise is the hybridization of the knowledge of the different sectors.
1 minute to conclude.
Okay, yeah, it is finished. Automotive sector, fishing sector, energy, and the training sector with the project Marinet, and design what is the ocean hull of the future with one level of transparency, traceability, sustainability, equality. Everybody know what is the information in the ocean hull. These fish come for the good environment pleasure, and then the modern consumer is more aware of the environment problems, seek more and more products that are produced with the full respect to conservation principle. For the reason, this is other example, but we have some. Thank you very much. I answer the question when finished the panel. Thank you.
Carlos, thank you for that presentation, and really interesting to look at the various projects that the port are involved in, and just that link between digitalization and energy efficiency and sustainability. And I think that's becoming a theme that's much more apparent in all the presentations, and certainly something that's going to be much more on everybody's agenda as we try to reach the various greenhouse gas emissions targets that we've all been set. So I think I think we will take the results. Liz, I think we have the results of the Slido poll. So we might just bring that up on the screen before we move into the panel discussion. If they're available.
Okay, I'm just going to bring it up there now, Idel.
Great, thanks, Liz.
So can you see that, Idel?
Yes, so the port activities most suitable to digitalization. So I think Paul mentioned this at the start of his presentation, actually. So looking at ship movements and cargo handling as being the key activities. I'm a little bit surprised that there is not more on the reporting or regulatory requirements, because that is something maybe that I would have thought even through the single window, and that would be a big burden on ports and shipping operators. So interesting to see those results. So 36% ship movements, 44% cargo handling, and only 8% there in reporting and 12% on multimodal connections. So I'd like to invite back, unfortunately, Christopher from Brittany Ferries, I don't think is able to join us. So I'd like to invite our panel back on the screen. If you can turn your cameras back on, and we will move into our panel discussion. Paul, is Paul there?
Yes, Idel.
Paul, just on those poll results, you mentioned at the start, I think that's what you expected it to be.
Yeah, it's not surprising. I guess ship movements and cargo operations are low-hanging fruit. Carlos's presentation really pointed that out when you look at the efficiencies that can be gained by employing good technology and digitization, terminal operating systems in a container terminal to reduce moves, to create better data flows, to create efficiencies, to reduce resources, physical resources that are necessary to do jobs through automation. And if you look at the way the industry has developed, and if you look at it from I suppose a cost first analysis, there are more tools available out there to make cargo handling more efficient than any other area that we apply to the port sector. If you look at the regulatory part of it, it's probably the most difficult part to tackle and has the least value chain from a point of view of commercial operators offering a service, because most of the regulatory issues that we encounter are more or less statutory, where you have to integrate with a lot of the government departments. So therefore, there's probably less of an advantage to the commercial operators to offer products in that area. But certainly with shipping and cargo globally, and certainly in the unitized cargo, there's an array of products and a huge advantage to be able to get the right product to increase efficiency and reduce costs.
Yeah, no, and I totally agree with you there, because especially, especially for, we'll say, a port that's looking for the shelf solutions, there's probably more on the market in that regard, and the regulatory is probably is more customized in terms of people's individual operations and trying to link up with the various customs authorities in your own jurisdiction. Claudio, I'd be interested to get your views on that, because obviously you have linked in with your authorities, and I know Port Cork as well have linked in on the customs side of things. But I'd be interested on your thoughts, in terms of what you see as, you've implemented the single window in Portugal. What has been the most beneficial, do you think, to ports? What types of services are you seeing that are being most beneficial?
I think the value that you provide with this solution, the value that you provide to our clients, it's the simplification and the harmonization of the process in a national scope. In the past, we have different procedures for cargo handling or for the ship management, for deal with the issues related with customs. We had different procedures in each of the ports, and with this kind of projects, this project that I present to you today, it is not the first project that we did. But with this project, we harmonize, we simplify the procedures, and I think this is the most value that you give for our clients.
And can I ask, we have a project that's launching at the moment, an international fast and secure trade lane project, which will be about creating efficiencies between ports, in terms of, the logistics processes will be considered, and there's a pilot between Dublin and Cherbourg, and then that to be rolled out to other motorways of the sea routes. But what's of interest, and even from an Irish ports perspective, is, you know, how you bring all the ports together in terms of a solution, and you've done that in Portugal. So how did you bring the various stakeholders together? What is the model that you've used to bring not just the ports, but the various authorities and everybody to the table in terms of rolling this out?
I was thinking about that in the last minutes. I don't know. I don't really know what our secret is. In fact, we managed to put all the authorities and the private entities involved in the common objective, in the common goal. But I know somewhere in our path we realize that we need new tools, that we need tools integrating all the entities, all the authorities. Maybe the trigger, it was in 2000, around 2007, 2008, when we did the first project with the customer authorities. We did two projects at the same time. From the port side, we developed the first port single window platform. At that time, it was a project from Port of Sines in the south of the country, from Port of Lisbon with the Port of Leixões that is in the north of the country. And we did that together with the customs authority, because in that time they realized too that they need new tools to manage all the data, all the information related with the cargo, with the containerized cargo, and so on. And we did that together. Maybe that was the trigger. We gain trust with that. I think the trust is the most relevant issue in this. The trust from the authorities and the trust from the private sector that use our services.
And I think that's a key point, is the trust there, and doing a kind of doing a project at the start that, you know, somewhat whets the appetite for doing something larger. And it's really interesting to look at how you've rolled out that model. And the project itself, does that sit? Who will say has control of the project? Is it all the project partners, or as a group, or where does the project? Who owns the project as such?
The owner of the project are the port authorities.
Okay. Okay.
But
yeah.
Yeah, we have a committee where we bring all the other entities from the private and from the public sector. Okay.
Great. That's really interesting. Carlos, just to come to you on that, in terms of what's happening in Puerto Vigo, you know, and in Spain, you know, in terms of, so I can see that you're already involved in a number of collaborative projects. Do you see similar trends in Spain in terms of the different ports collaborating together, or, you know, on projects, or what do you see as the main driver in terms of your own digitalization strategy in Puerto Vigo?
Yes, thank you. The situation is a little different than the Portugal. I have more collaboration in digitalization with Portugal, or the Port of Leixões and the Euroregion Galicia, north of Portugal. We have several projects in the digitalization and work together. But in the case of Spain, there are different systems or different tools, but it's not each port decide what the best solution for for the port, not that only the one direction, a different direction. It is possible the system of the Port of Vigo, the smart system, it is similar than the system in the Valencia, Barcelona, and other, but it's a decision of the port. It's total difference in the case of the Spain.
Okay. And I suppose to talk to you a little bit more, you mentioned sustainability a lot in your presentation, and you know, there are obviously some key challenges with that, Carlos. So I'd just like to explore that a little bit further. So what do you think are the major challenges to securing this green future for ports? And what role do you think digitalisation plays in that?
Yes, thank you. The European Union have proposed a very ambitious commitments, more demanding than other international organizations. One example is the goal of the reduction of the emission 55% by 2030, and the carbon neutral emission by 2015. For the port, it is not easy to comply with these commitments. It is a good commitment, but it is not easy. And in the case of the big port, Rotterdam, Hamburg, they have big environment teams, and they have the capacity to design their strategy. But the problem in Europe, there are a lot of small and medium ports, and it is more complicated to have to each strategy in this matter. I think the paper of the smart system of the digitalization have a very important paper in this matter. We need, or they need, informatical tool to give support to make a decision and design a strategy. In the case of the Port of Vigo, we are working in the implementation of several tools to give support in this line, and digitalization, it is very important. Our goal is this tool, it is possible to use the rest of the port of Spain. We are working with all the other ports, but I think it is the digitalization have a very important part in all these important challenges. Another important challenge is the relation between the port and city. The digitalization, it is a very good system to give more transparency and to give feedback with the city and to know the situation of the port, because it is necessary to speak the same language, the citizen and the port. We have and the port from zero and digitalization and this type of platform, it is the best way to attain this goal. There are others with the use of drones in monitoring, robotics, blockchain, traceability, but I think this is the big two challenges. I don't listen, sorry.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, apologies.
There's
lots. Sorry, Paul, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, can I add to that actually?
Yeah.
It's a very good point that Carl's point of view of the integration and the understanding of ports and cities and urban areas as well, and how digitization can help there. There are many aspects of the port operations that affect cities and many aspects of the city operations that affect ports. And I think by working much closer together, even from a point of view of traffic management, environmental initiatives, environmental compliance, there can be a greater level of harmony between ports and the city and urban areas that are around them, and a much greater level of understanding as we can, I guess, use digitization platforms to share information that is so valuable to the cities as well. I mean, it is obvious to everybody on this call that cities and urban areas won't survive without ports, but it's not always too obvious to the city and urban areas that they need ports to survive. So it's a very strong point. And back to the point of CINES with the Portuguese port community system, it is hugely beneficial to have a system that is integrated and all of the actors are part of it. I think what is really telling from the point from CNES is they started in 2007, 2008 with an initial project. So you can see the time that it takes to actually build up the trust, the cooperation in order to get to where they are today. And ultimately, speaking from an Irish port perspective, that is something that we should be aiming for. There is, of course, the individual nature of each port that needs to be catered for. There's the overall capital funding in order to get this moving. But I think that the benefits of having such a single window far outweigh the individual needs of one port, and also will really dwarf the capital funding that's needed at the start. So I think that is something that a model that really could be taken on and used quite efficiently and quite well. So there are some real good learnings to come out of this panel, I think, you know.
Yeah. And Paul, can I just ask you, just to, I suppose, zone in on that a bit, and we're talking about ports, and you know that ports are not just logistics hubs anymore, that they're key parts of the community. They're these multimodal digital hubs. You know, a port that is so busy with its day-to-day operations and actually trying to fulfill its core goal. How do you tackle that? I mean, you know, that this view that ports need to, you know, be experts in digitalization, be experts in these industry 4.0 technologies, you know, in terms of having the resources to build your team, to take your port on the pathway from, you know, the scale you mentioned earlier. How do we do that? Is it a case that, for example, we need to encourage more collaboration between ports, that we need to, you know, kind of not reinvent the wheel between ports? What do you see as being you know, how do we overcome that?
Yeah, I think, look, the number one, I think, for us to be able to overcome that is collaboration. We have mega ports in Europe that have mega incomes, huge budgets, and in fairness to those ports, they are reinvesting into those ports in digitization, in community, and in environmental initiatives that many of the smaller ports can never afford to do on the level of income that we generate through the port. And we can never afford, speaking solely just from Cork, we can never afford to have a division dedicated to digitalization or the environment. We have to use the people that we have to support all of the different areas. However, what we can do by collaborating with the larger ports, and I think it is certainly in the corporate social responsibility of those ports as well, to be able to share the technology that they can bring forward and advance. Because if you look at how they generate their income as well as being main hub ports, but they can't survive without the smaller ports either. We are their customer. They are the big guys that are using the small ports in order to be able to establish a greater transport network right across Europe. So I think there is certainly collaboration is going to be the way forward with this. There are some really, really good tools on the market that layer up the port to become a modern, connected, digitized port. And I think that ports as well can be very clever about looking at key areas where they can gain maximum efficiency for minimum value. So we're matching what we have. We're looking at the key areas that we can make a difference in ourselves, and then we're looking at the broader areas and the wider communities and the wider European context to say, okay, we don't have enough capex power and we don't have enough expertise to generate forward momentum here. So now we need to reach out to somebody to help us. And I think that really is the way that we're going to go forward. Much of the tools that we're using today are either tools that we've developed ourselves or that we've seen working very well in other ports, and we've reached out and said, hey, do you think this would work for us, and can you help us? We've worked with Rotterdam, we've worked with Amsterdam, we've worked with Hamburg. We've worked with Port of Halifax currently on some AI stuff, or AL stuff, sorry, and we've worked with Singapore. And you know, there's nothing stopping us from reaching out, and ports are usually quite good to help each other out as well from that perspective.
Thanks, Paul. And I
Hello.
think that's a great point. Carlos, do you want to come in there?
Yes, only short comments. I think it's very
Yes.
interesting question on this. I think there are two ways, important ways. One is the ports network, the case of ESPO, or the different collaboration in the Atlantic area, to know the different knowledge that are in other ports. But the other, in our Blue Growth strategy, we work very hard and strong with the research center and the university that are in the port area, because it is impossible to have experts in all areas. It's very complicated. But if you work with the university, with the research center of the automotive, the Marine Research Center and the rest, you have a good spring to include in your port. This is the two possibility, because the medium and small port don't have the big budget to develop all the ideas. But if you work with other ports and if you work with the local stakeholder, you have a very good capacity.
Thank you, Carlos. Yeah, and we've seen examples of that in an Irish context well, in terms of linking in with research centres, particularly in areas of data analytics and that. But, you know, in terms of the models, it's really interesting to look at the models, because in terms of resources and budgets and how you get the research model to work with the maritime industry, which is very operationally focused, it's interesting how to marry those two, because we've seen some difficulties in the past whereby, you know, the research is probably more long-term and the ports are more focused on, you know, on near-term challenges with a view to the long-term. So it's how do you marry that? But really interesting point. Claudio, can I just ask you, you have done so much in Portugal to bring the various stakeholders together, and as Paul mentioned, you know, having that project back in 2008, 2007, 2008 was critical in terms of building trust. But is there plans to extend your model out beyond Portugal to link in with other you know, ports and other member states, and to look at collaboration? Or is it, you know, and I know your single window from a regulatory point of view is mainly a Portuguese project, but are there any plans to or have you already maybe linked out with some European partners?
Yes, we have plans in the scope of this project and for the future to connect our platform with other platforms like this one, regional platforms, or maybe platforms just from one part. I had conversation with, for instance, with Antwerp and with Rotterdam, to start working with them to start sharing data related with the ships and the ships movements and the cargo movements. Yeah. So we want to go to this in this way. Yes. As well, we have plans to integrate our platform with, for instance, with marketplaces, to share information with them about the services that are available, and share with them data that give visibility to all the logistic chain. Yeah.
You are muted, Edel.
Apologies, thanks, Liz. Talking to myself here. There's a question. Thank you for that answer, Claudio. I just to close the session, there's a question that has come in from the audience that I think might be of interest, and digital twin has come up in a few of the presentations. And somebody from our audience has asked that they would like to know a little bit more about the projects to implement digital twin in the ports and what the expected benefits are. So just a closing remark in relation to that. Paul, I come to you first there on that. Oh, I think you're on mute as well, Paul.
Yeah, again, probably as well talking to myself. I think it's very, very difficult to put a cost-benefit analysis to digital twin at the moment, okay? And there's a certain leap of faith that has to be taken with it. If you look at what the concept of a digital twin is supposed to be, and you just take it on its core value, which is it is an absolute replica of your port digitized so that you can carry it anywhere and manage your assets to best efficiency, then that's a great way of looking at it. And if you look at COVID, where many of us have had to work from home, offices have been closed, or day-to-day connections and meetings with other colleagues and staff are very limited. So how beneficial is a digital twin then in the last 12 months, where you can actually share information over a platform? You're looking at the same asset, you're discussing it, you're managing traffic, you're managing efficiencies. You can see where your assets are not performing effectively. You can manage emergency situations. You can manage dredging, you can manage ship movements, and you can manage that over a platform where 6, 7, 8, 10 of you can actually view this together. So if you think of most ports, some of them are small and confined in tight areas, more of them are spread over many, many kilometers, and you have to physically be on the ground to make some decisions. So I think there are really, really many advantages to having a digital twin. Can I put a cost-benefit analysis on it at the moment? No, and funny now, it's a similar question that our CEO has asked me to do, a cost-benefit analysis on a digital twin. So I'll get back to you on that.
Great, thank you, Paul. Carlos or Claudio, do you want to make any remarks on that before we close the panel on the digital twin?
I think it is okay. It's a perfect example, as my colleagues of the Port of Cork they explain very good. I don't have more things.
Okay. Great. Okay, listen, I think it's fair to say that we could talk for another half an hour here, but unfortunately we have to close to give people a chance to get a cup of coffee before we move into the next session. But I really want to thank our three panelists, Captain Paul O'Regan from the Port of Cork, Mr. Claudio Pinto from the Port of Sines, and Mr. Carlos Botano-Lagron from the Port of Vigo. Really thank you for your contributions this morning, and I really think that we can take some of those points further, and a lot to think about there. So thank you. And I'd like to invite our participants now to take a 10-minute break just to grab a cup of coffee, and we will rejoin at 11:10. So you've about 8 minutes to get the kettle on. So thank you again, and we will see you at 11:10.
Thank you.
Edel, Michael here. Hello.
Michael, how are you?
That's good. Can we just can you just allow me to share so that I know that everything works?
Yes, so we go into a practice session. Alina, can you put us into a practice session so
yes,
Michael can share?
I will, but okay.